So I welcome one and all of you to today's class. And before we start today's class, I would like to just give in some information about a few things. So after we finish today's class and before we enter the doubt session, there will just be a small 5 or 10 minute presentation about a new course that Vyoma is going to launch soon. So I would request all of you to please wait, and after we finish that, we will have our question answer or doubt session. And also I think a lot of people had asked how many more classes and whether we will have an assessment after the end of this. So excluding today's class, we will be having another 2 or 3 classes, so after which we might be covering most of the basics about Ayurveda that we want to communicate through to general common people. So after today's class, we would mostly be dealing with how to eat food, what rules have been told about eating food, what are the do's and don'ts. So all that will be dealt with in detail. So maximum another 2 or 3 classes, followed by which the last class will be an assessment class where you will be having an MCQ kind of assessment, that is a multiple choice question round where you will just have to choose the right answer. So that will be the last thing. So I think mostly by the first Sunday of October, we should be finishing this thing. So yeah, these were the 3 things we wanted to let you know before we started. So let's move on to today's webinar. So today we will be dealing with the topic Rasa Bhedeyem. That is the importance and properties of the 6 tastes that we predominantly have in our diet. So yeah, is the screen visible in presentation mode? Just a clarification before we start. So, okay. So coming to the shad rasas, or the 6 tastes, Ayurveda broadly divides them into madhura, that is sweet, amlam, that is sour, lavanam, salty, tiktam is bitter, katu is spicy, and kashayam is astringent in taste. So before this, the last 2 sessions, we dealt with various properties of liquids and solid kind of food that we usually consume. So in that, if you recollect, we would have gone through the properties of each, in which we would have told you milk is sweet, ghee is madhuram, sour, like citrus fruits like lemon are sour, all that different kinds. So we saw that rice, wheat fall under, so they are basically madhuram. So we would have told all these. So if you recollect that the pulses like green gram, urad dal are all madhuram. Then spices like pepper, ginger, etc. are all katu. So when we went through each and every category of food, if you recollect, we would have mentioned that they are basically, in general, they have a particular taste to it. So we will see what are the functions of each and every taste in the body and what effect it has. So now you will be able to connect the sort of food with its taste and its function and action in the body. So then coming to effect of the rasas or taste on the doshas. So in Ritucharya, we saw what the seasons had, what effect the seasons had on the doshas. And also we saw in the first PPT how childhood or old age had an effect on the doshas. So similarly, the 6 tastes also have an impact on the doshas. So you can just focus on the decrease part of it, the ones that I've highlighted in red, which is predominantly what we need to remember. So madhuram, amlam, lavanam, that is foods that are sweet, sour, and salty, predominantly help in reducing vata in the body. Then tikta, katu, kashayam, so foods that are bitter, spicy, and slightly astringent in taste, reduce kapham. So I think this is commonly experienced if you commonly have a cold or cough or phlegm at home. People usually take a little bit of pepper, ginger, tulasi, betel leaf, all of these which are predominant of katu tikta rasa, that is spicy and bitter taste, and you basically boil and have a decoction of it. The principle being, generally katu tikta foods that are spicy and slightly bitter in taste help in reducing kapham in the body, and kashaya tikta madhuram, so foods that are astringent tiktam, that is bitter and sweet, decrease pittam. So if you recollect in Ritucharya, in Sharat Ritu, we would have told when there's an abnormal increase of pittam, usually all the treatments that are done in Sharat Ritu or autumn are done to reduce the aggravated pittam. So medicines that are given are predominantly sweet and bitter in taste. So sweet and bitter together help in reducing pittam in the body. So you can just remember the points that decrease the doshas. So you can know that madhuram, amlam, lavanam reduce vata. The tikta, katu, that is spicy and bitter foods, have an action on kapham. And madhuram and tiktam, that is foods that are predominantly bitter and sweet, reduce pittam in the body. Then coming to each and every individual rasa. So coming to madhura rasa. So they are in general vata pitta haram. So generally that which is sweet helps in reducing vata pittam in the body. It is heavy to digest and it is unctuous or nourishing to the body. Then what are the properties generally? Foods that are generally sweet have a tendency to coat the mouth. They are very pleasing when consumed. They have a refreshing action on the senses. So when we are very tired, very exhausted, so when we tend to consume that is something sweet, it gives us a sudden sense of energy or a sudden sense of well-being. And it is a delight to the body and even liked by small creatures. So what are some of the foods that fall under this category? So ghee, jaggery, your sweet fruits like banana, jackfruit, grapes, dates, milk, rice, wheat, all of these fall under the madhura gana or the sweet group. So when we think of sweet or madhura gana, it should not just be thought of sweets or desserts or ice cream or cake or something that is only sweet by nature, but we should also remember that ghee that we consume, butter that we consume, rice, wheat, the basic pulses that we consume, milk, all of these are also by nature sweet in taste. Then what functions do these do to the body? So madhura rasa is something that we are accustomed to by birth. So right from the birth of a child, the first 6 months when it's exclusively breastfed, so the breast milk in itself is madhura rasa. And then when we start weaning the child into having some other foods, we also start by giving them only rice, ragi, then cow's milk. So all of that we start, ghee. So all these are the next immediate foods that we start for the newborn, because in general they are accustomed to it by birth, and madhura rasa in general strengthens the dhatus of the body. Then they are desirable for both young and old. So like we discussed, madhura rasa is very, very nourishing to the body. So it is very desirable for the young. So then again, don't think of it as only sweets, desserts, etc. Rice, wheat, milk, ghee, all of this fall under madhura gana. So which of the madhuram that you choose is very important. So such kind of nourishing foods are very important at the growing age, and when you enter into old age, when your dhatus or your nourishment is going down again and you're depleting. So it is very desirable for both young and old people. It is beneficial for those afflicted by debilitating diseases. So post any trauma, post injury, post any strong treatment where the balam or strength of the person is reduced, such people, madhura rasa consumption is very, very important. Then again, it is good for the voice. Then it improves breast milk production. We saw that cow's milk again enhances breast milk. So all that which is madhuram enhances breast milk, and it promotes healing. So internal healing, that is either wound healing, or it can be bone healing, or recovery or healing from any kind of trauma. So these are the functions of madhura rasa. Then what happens when there is an ati prayogam, that is excess use? So I think there might be a question, how do you exactly define ati prayogam or excess use? So then again, there is no mention of quantity to be taken in Ayurveda. So it is not mentioned that per day you should take only 100 grams, 150 grams of XYZ. So this kind of quantification is not mentioned, but we should keep in mind the taste that we consume, and overall try to balance all the 6 rasas in our consumption. So clinically what we see ati prayogam is, people may be having a very sedentary lifestyle, or sleeping 2-3 hours in the afternoon, then consuming 2 times rice, having 3 or 4 coffees a day, having curd twice a day. So what happens over a period of time, all of these are madhuram and they increase kapham in the body. So or some people in general have a tendency to consume excess sweets, so they consume less grain and then they have more of sweet foods. So all of this will lead to ati prayogam of that particular rasa. So in general, clinically, this is what we see. So what happens is, or when you observe these symptoms in your body, you can know that there is a slight increase of kapham. So when excessive sweets are consumed, it vitiates kapham and fat, so you naturally tend to put on weight, then it leads to obesity. Then when there is a kapham increase in the body, it makes you more mandam, or it kind of slows you down and makes you sluggish. Then it leads to excessive sleep, because you're always so dull, you feel sleepy. It causes heaviness in the body and it diminishes the digestive power. Then people end up getting diseases like diabetes, thyroid, tumors. So either benign or malignant or different kind of tumors in the body, respiratory infections like asthma, running nose, or wheezing, all of this. And in children, worm infestation, loss of appetite, etc. is very, very common. So if we see in children, they might be consuming a lot of sweets, a lot of chocolates, lot of Indian sweets, etc. And by principle itself, what they principally eat is milk, ghee, rice, wheat. So in general, there is an overall increase of madhuram, which is commonly seen. So also people may wonder why they became diabetic. Some people with no family history may end up having diabetes, thyroid. All this is because of kapha vriddhi. So it may not necessarily mean you have to eat kilos and kilos of sweet every day to become diabetic, but leading a sedentary lifestyle, not active, not balancing the kapham in your body. So then again, like I said, having 3-4 coffees a day, having some sweet every day. So a lot of people have some sweet or something with their tea. So in general, you should know milk, rice, wheat are also sweet. So balancing them and leading an active lifestyle is equally important. Then coming to amla rasam, so foods that are sour. So they have a tendency to increase kapha pittam and raktam in the body. So amla rasam reduces vayu slightly and it has an action on kapha pittam. It is light, so easy to digest, and it is ushna viryam, that is, it is hot in potency. So in the action of the body, it is hot, but on touching or by the look of it, it is cooling, and it facilitates the downward movement of vata, which is essential. Then the properties are, it is good for the heart. So generally, if you see in certain kind of hridrogam or heart related ailments, especially if it is a vata pradhana heart disease, then the medicines that are given in slightly sour fruit juices, or the medicines will have a slight sour taste to it, because amla rasam in general is very good for the heart. It is refreshing, and when we consume anything sour, it cleans up the mouth. It gives us a good sense of taste, and sometimes it gives us a tooth sensitivity. Then because of its ushna gunam, it is good for digestion. It adds taste to the food, no doubt. Then also it is nourishing to some extent, and sometimes it's purgative. So if you have excess of sour foods, you might have seen your bowel might tend to be slightly loose. So some of the food articles that come under this gana, so I think you would be familiar: tamarind, tomato, lemon, all your citrus fruits like orange, musambi, pineapple, your sour grapes, all of it that are predominantly sour, raw mango, then gooseberry, that is nothing but nellika, then pomegranate, curd, buttermilk. So I think you know the distinguished properties between them, but both curd and buttermilk are sour in predominant in taste. Vinegar, citron, and all the other citrus fruits predominantly fall under this gana. Then what happens when you use it in excess? So it causes slackness or sluggishness in the body. So So because it is Laghu and Ushna Viryam, so it kind of makes you very sluggish. Why? Because it increases pittam in the body, and it can lead to giddiness, excessive thirst, and it causes itching. Or once pittam and raktam vitiate in the body, it definitely leads to different kinds of skin diseases. Then it can also give rise to pitta predominant diseases like herpes, fever, anemia, swelling, etc. So when your sour and salty levels generally increase, the quality of your blood definitely reduces. So what clinically, practically we see in Ati Prayogam of Amla Rasam is, irrespective of season, irrespective of nature of the body, people may be consuming orange juice every day, musambi juice every day, eating a lot of sour fruits. So I think it's correlated with a vitamin C consumption level, but over a period excess consumption, and I think predominantly itself in our diet, almost each and every food that we have. So if you make a sambar, if you make a rasam, if you're going to make a dal, everything has some kind of tamarind, tomato, lemon content to it. So in excluding all of this, and sometimes for the taste of it, slightly there is a excessive use. So people want a lot of taste in food these days. So predominantly also when we see in predominantly low socioeconomic strata people who come to us, extremely anemic, very, very poor blood quality. So no matter how much of iron supplement you give them, it will not pick up, because predominantly what they eat will be, sambar or rasam or some, what you call it, some dish that is soaked. So what they do is they just soak tamarind in water, strain out that, and their base of any gravy will be tamarind water with a lot of chili powder in it, because they cannot afford a lot of dal, vegetable pulses. So we commonly see, so I think in Tamil, or when I used to be in Chennai, they used to always have a lot of puli korambu, kara korambu, meen korambu. So it's predominantly only puli and spice. So that is only tamarind and spice will be there in their diet. There will not be anything else. So the same thing will be consumed for breakfast, lunch, dinner put together. No milk, no ghee, nothing nourishing in the diet. So over a period of time, excessive use of amla rasam leads to anemia, and they will be very lean. They will have no energy or no stamina in the body. Also, a lot of youngsters who come predominantly are anemic because of a lot of this junk food or street food that are predominantly. So a lot of your charts, etc., have a lot of tamarind water, tomato, lemon, or excess consumption of lemon juice, lemonade, orange juice. All of this 365 days without knowing the body nature, etc., leads to, so when there is an excess consumption of amlam, it leads to pittam and kapha vriddhi. So always we see some children may be coming up with chest congestion, or they're continuously getting cough, cold. So what happens is continuously consuming citrus fruit juices will also lead to buildup of this kapha in the body. So this is what happens clinically when we see excess of use of sour foods. Then coming to amla rasam, or foods that are salty. So I think salt is something we use in very minimum for taste in the food. So basically in food, it is sharp in action. So it gives a good sharp taste to the food and increases the taste of the food, no doubt. And when we use it in form of a medicine, when we use it in certain medicines or in certain treatments, then the action of lavanam is chedanam and bedanam. That is, it is abrasive in nature. It has a slightly scraping nature, and it is very piercing and penetrating. So it has a property to carry the medicines that we mix it to the part that we intend that the medicine gets acted upon. So again, I think there are 5 salts that are very commonly used. So among that, Ayurveda recommends rock salt or Himalayan rock salt. So I will tell you why and the properties. So I think you all know there's sea salt, there is backwater salt, rock salt, etc. So Ayurveda always recommends rock salt or Saindava Lavanam. It is called Himalayan rock salt or Indupu. It has a slight pinkish shade to it. So when we go through the end, I'll let you know what are the properties of this and why it is considered the best among the 5 Lavanas. Then, what are the functions of the salty taste in our body? It increases the digestion, and then it destroys stiffness. So the others can be thought about in terms of when it's used in the medicine. So it disintegrates consolidations or adhesions. So any blockages, any stiffness, or even if you come across any medicines for the stomach. So if you have a very full stomach, or kind of ajirnam, where your stomach is very heavy, food is not getting digested, you go through the medicines that they give you for digestion, they will definitely have some amount of Saindava Lavanam in it, because they help in breaking through the stiffness and adhesions. And also in different Panchakarma treatments also, this Lavanam is used in some of them, because it helps in clearing up the channels. Then excess consumption can even cause some perspiration, and it brings about dryness in the body. So it is not very nourishing. So it has a ruksha gunam to it, salt in basic. So what happens when you consume excess of it? So when I went through what are the foods that have excess salt, so I think a lot of um pickles or a lot of foods are usually salt soaked and dried and then had, with it. So occasional consumption of this is okay, but regular consumption, or even some seafood or some kind of meat, are all soaked in salt water to increase its preservation time. So such kind of food which are soaked excessively in lavanam, or in general consuming excess of salty food in our diet regularly, definitely increases raktam and pittam in the body, because salt is very, very heating, and it is ruksham or drying. So it leads to a lot of bleeding disorders. And when your lavanam or salt content increases in the food, so by nature your salt alone will not increase. So when you're putting more salt, your spice level will increase, your sour level will increase, to balance the whole dish, the quality of the whole dish. So people in general who tend to consume a lot of sour food, by default the sour and salty level will also be high. So what happens? There is a pitta increase, so it leads to baldness, graying of hair. Then because of its dry nature, there's wrinkling of skin. Then thirst, a lot of skin ailments. So we see a lot of youngsters these days, 22, 25, 27, all coming with severe hair fall, graying of hair, poor quality of skin, lot of skin diseases. So like I told you, when we consume food, if the salt level is high, the salt alone will not be high. The sour level will also be high. The spice level will also be high. So all of it together, when there is a pittam and raktam vitiation, it leads to, whenever pittam is high, the heat in the body increases. So it leads to early graying, premature graying of hair, severe hair fall, baldness. Then skin diseases. Lot of skin diseases are very common with people consuming high level of spice and sour food and salty food. And because of its ruksha gunam, it causes weakness in the body. It's not a very nourishing kind of food. So lavanam is always added for taste, and it should be maintained to its minimum quantity. Then coming to tikta rasam, or foods that are predominantly bitter. So as we all know, it is not tasty by itself. So when we are going to consume bitter something, it's not as tasty as sweet or sour foods. And when you consume it, it causes a mild inhibition of sensation of taste in the tongue for a period of time. So like we discussed its properties, it reduces pittam and kapham. So it is very, very good in diseases where there is a pittam and kapha vriddhi. So it is again cooling, it is light to digest, and it is ruksham or drying in nature. And it promotes intellect, it purifies breast milk, and clears the throat. So medicinal wise, if you see, all regarding all these problems, or in any way you want something to increase your memory, intellect, or when we do purification of breast milk for women, or we give them medicines, all of this will be tikta pradhanam. The medicines will be slightly bitter, because they are pittam and kaphaharam, they are light, and they are drying in nature. So very few foods come under the bitter category. So textually, what have been mentioned is snake guard and turmeric. And even the turmeric, I think we add it in small quantity as a part of our spice for sure. And the others predominantly are seen as medicine. So that is neem, then sandalwood, then bunimbam, I think is called kreta. Then I think guduchi, this plant is very familiar. It's called giloy in Hindi, and it's called sindal kodi in Tamil. So it is very, very beneficial because it's a very good pitta kafaharam and it is tikta pradhanam. And this vacha is nothing but Acarus calamus, it's called vasambu. So it is something that we generally use as medicines in various conditions. So in our current day foods that we see, which are not mentioned in the text, so then again, definitely bitter gourd, that is again bitter. Then I think coffee, cocoa, are also bitter in nature. So coffee has a mixture of bitter, astringent, and katu rasam. So it's predominantly bitter in taste is what we can see. So what are the functions? So when you consume these in form of, so and also I think something that just came up to my mind is this, in Tamil it's called sundaka or manatakali. They are small of dried fruits of certain plants that are extremely bitter, and they are used in the food once in a while. So they are small round seeds that are dried and they are extremely bitter. So I will bring you the names if people want to know later. But I think people who know Tamil may know that sundakya, manatakali, all of these are also bitter. So what foods that are bitter do is it cures appetite. Though in itself it is not very tasty, it is very, very good for bringing back poor appetite or digestion. And it is very good in the treatment of aruchi. Aruchi is when you do not have a sensation or an interest to eat food. It is good in worm infestation and thirst. And medically, it is very, very beneficial in skin ailments, fever, conditions of fainting or pittam, increased burning sensation, over secretion of mucus. So because there is an increase of pittam and kapham in all these cases. So when you go for fever, an Ayurvedic physician will predominantly give you a tikta pradhana kashayam for some time, because it is very good pitta haram. All your skin ailments also, they give you tikta medicines to reduce the pittam and raktam. And also because of its kaphaharam property, it is very beneficial in drying up mucus and adiposity. Because of its ruksha gunam, it also has a scraping nature. Then what happens when you excessively consume it? Because of its dry ruksha gunam and its tendency to increase vayu, long-term use or excessive use of it leads to wasting of tissues, or it leads to depletion or undernourishment and predominant of vata rogam. So the vayu tends to aggravate. So as such, in our diet predominantly we don't see it, except for people who consume excess of coffee. So some people have, I think, 5-6 coffees a day, very, very bitter, very strong. So such people have a natural tendency for vatam to aggravate in the body, which is what we practically see. Otherwise, there is no as such very particular foods that are consumed regularly in the bitter taste. Predominantly they are given as medicines. And even if you see long term, no one will be giving you kashayams or very bitter medicines for long term, because they have an effect on dhatus. So in the acute stage of the disease is when these bitter medicines are predominantly given. Then coming to katu rasa, or foods that are spicy. So by nature we know something that is spicy is ushnam, it is heating, and it reduces kapham. Because of its strong, pungent taste, it reduces kapham in the body. Then it is deepanam pachanam, it is good digestive and carminative. It helps in good breaking down of the food and good agni function. It is tasty, so it adds taste to the food, and it causes watering of the nose, eyes, and mouth. So that also we would have experienced when we eat spicy food. And it causes quivering at the tip of the tongue. So this is what spicy food does in general. So I think we all know the ghana that includes it. All our spices, predominantly pepper, long pepper, fresh dried pepper, ginger powder, dried ginger, then chilies, red, green chili, dried chilies, chili powder, then your onion, garlic that we discussed last class. So all of this in general are katu rasa, or spicy in nature. So what are the functions predominantly of them are, because it is ushnam, heating, and it is so pungent, it has an action of drying up. So it does drying up of sneha, that is the unctuousness of the body, kleda, and fat. So when consumed in moderation, there is a mild decrease of this. So, but when you consume too much of it in excess, what happens is all the nourishment, all the moisture, all the unctuousness in your body tends to dry up. Then because of its Ushna Gunam, it helps in digestion process and breaking down of food, and it opens up metabolic pathways. So that is the whole point of adding spices to the food, because it is a good digestive and carminative. It helps in good digestion and breaking down of food, and also clears up the pathways. Then it is very beneficial in throat ailments, skin ailments, and in treatment where there is stagnation of food. So then again, all the medicines pertaining to your stomach or any digestion related issues will definitely have all these katu pradhana rasas to help in breaking down of the stagnated food and help in the digestion of food. So however, when there is excess consumption of spicy food, some people have a habit of eating green chili alone with their food. Some people have a high spice tolerance level. Some cuisines in our country have extremely known for high spice levels. So over a period of time, when excessive spicy food is consumed, it's not a matter of 1 day or 2 days or 2-3 meals. Occasional consumption will not bother, but regularly itself, when people tend to consume high spice level foods, it causes loss of strength, thirst, fainting, definitely, and there is no nourishment or nutrition to the body. So muscle cramps because of weakness, and pains and aches in the body. So should remember that tikta and katu, bitter and spicy foods, always have an aggravation of vayu in the body. So once vata gets aggravated in the body, people come with a lot of aches and pains, not a very well-being feeling. So feeling of no strength in the body, because like I mentioned earlier, if your spice level is more, your sour, salty levels, all the three are on the higher level all the time. So then coming to kashaya rasa or astringent taste, then again, it is not very commonly seen in the diet. So I think we have very few foods that fall under astringent taste. However, so something that is very astringent reduces kapham and pittam in the body. It is cooling and drying to the body, and astringent food, that is in general kashaya rasa food that are astringent, are slightly heavy to digest. Food or medicines you can take in this condition. So the only common food that we see for kashaya rasa is honey. So predominant of kashaya rasa and its secondary or subsidiary rasa is madhuram. So pure honey, when you eat, you slightly have an astringent taste in the beginning, and at the end of it, you can feel the sweetness of honey. Then the others are all more medicinal, where it's pearl, pravalam, coral, udumbara or fig tree, and khadiram. Khadiram is also a herb that is very used and predominantly used in skin related disease. So a lot of skin medicines have khadira in it. So predominantly what kashaya rasa does is, it is very, very good for blood, and it is very good for wound or internal healing. Because of its ruksha guna, it helps reduce kleda, that is moisture or fat content, and it is over a period, excess consumption, because of its cooling and dry, it tends to constipate you. And kashaya rasa is the best for skin. So to improve your quality of skin and any kind of skin ailment, kashaya rasa herbs or the drugs that are kashaya rasa are very, very beneficial. So what happens when there's excessive consumption of kashaya rasa? So then again, excessive consumption of kashayam leads to vata increase, because it is drying and cooling in nature. So long-term consumption of foods that are bitter, kashayam that is astringent, leads to vata vriddhi. So what happens? It causes abdominal distress and distension, thirst, muscle wasting, because of its drying nature, there is a depletion of tissues or dhatus in the body. Then it leads to pain. It also leads to depletion of semen, obstruction in channels, and excessive constipation. So already people who are extremely constipated, have a difficulty in moving bowel, etc., should avoid having honey in water regularly. I think it's a very common practice now. So predominantly, I think the only food that we see in kashaya rasa is honey. So, or if you're having a vata vyadhi, I think like we discussed earlier, too much of consumption of honey leads to excessive dryness or ruksha guna in the body. Then some exceptions to the rule. So I think now we have gone through the 6 rasas. However, our acharyas mentioned some exceptions in each category. So in madhura rasa, I told you, in general, excess of it all increase kapham. So all the foods that are sweet generally tend to increase kapham, except rice, barley, wheat, green gram, sugar, meat soup, or meat that is predominantly in Jangala Desha, and honey. So all of these do not have a tendency to vitiate kapham in the body. So these are something that we consume regularly. So they do all the other functions of what madhura rasa does that we discussed, but they do not vitiate or have a tendency to increase kapham. Whereas the other foods like milk, ghee, jaggery, sweets, excessive of sweets or excessive sweet fruits, all of this has a tendency. And also anupadesha mamsam, that is the meat that is of the seafood. All of these increase kapham in the body. So I think the exceptions you need to remember will be beneficial. So rice, wheat, sugar, all of these, though they are madhuram, they do not vitiate or increase kapham in the body, whereas the others over a period of time will tend to do. Then in amla rasam, all of them have a tendency to increase or vitiate pittam when consumed abnormally high, except for pomegranate and gooseberry. So the property of this is such that the end product of digestion becomes madhuram, so they do not have a tendency to vitiate pittam. So generally when we have people coming with a lot of skin problems, bleeding complaints, or when we see a clear increase of pittam, we ask them to completely stop tomato, tamarind, lemon, all kinds of citrus, except and replace it with pomegranate and gooseberry. So these two are the only foods, though they are sour in taste, do not vitiate or aggravate pittam in the body. Then coming to lavana rasa. So generally we saw they are ushnam, they are drying. It is not very, very good for the eyes when used excessively, except rock salt. So what are the properties of rock salt that are mentioned are, it is tasty, carbonative like all the other salts, but it does not cause burning unlike the other salts. So all the other salts are considered vidahi, or that induces burning, whereas Saindava lavanam, or this rock salt, Himalayan rock salt, does not cause burning, and it is considered good for fertility, and it is good for both heart and eyes. And in our next class, we will see about foods that are conducive for daily consumption. So in that, they would have mentioned Saindava Lavanam is the best. Then Sushruta mentions that it is unctuous. So we saw that Lavanam basically is drying or ruksham in nature, whereas Saindava Lavanam has a slightly different property where it is unctuous to the body and it has a slight sweet nature to it, and you may not taste the sweetness, but in its end product of digestion, it may have a madhura vipakam to it, and it is cooling to the body. This is why Ayurveda recommends the use of Himalayan rock salt. So coming back to the exceptions in tikta katu rasa. So mostly we saw that excess consumption of foods that are bitter and spicy increase vata, but there is an exception to it. So except for guduchi, that is the giloy, that sindal kodi plant that I told you, and snake guard, though these two are bitter, they do not vitiate vata in the body. And among spicy or katu spices, ginger, pepper, garlic, they do not vitiate vata. So the principle being, though they are spicy in taste, vipaka, like we discussed, the end product of digestion of ginger, pepper, that is especially dried pepper, garlic, onion, all of it becomes madhuram. So when the end product of digestion of this becomes madhuram, it has a tendency to reduce vata. So in earlier days, I think chili was not a part of our Indian diet. So majority of the spices that you see used in earlier days was pepper, jeera, dhania, ginger, onion, garlic. These were the predominant Indian spices that were used, because though they were katu, though they are spicy and give the spice level to the food, the end product of its digestion always becomes madhuram. That is, and once its end product is madhuram or sweet, it has a tendency to reduce vata. So chili, red and green chilies, dried chilies, chili powder, so these were not a part of Indian cultivation, but the properties of chili that we see is it is katu rasa. Its end product of digestion is also katu, which is why it vitiates vata. So when we have people coming practically to clinic having a lot of pain or a predominant vata vyadi, coming with rheumatoid complaints, joint complaints, back pain, so any kind of vayu related complaint, we ask them to completely stop chili spice and add only pepper, jeera, dhania, ginger, these kind of spices to the diet because of this exception to the rule that these spices have. So even if you see traditionally in our Indian diet, these were the predominant spices that were used. Once the chili cultivation or the import of chili started, which is when we started replacing our spices with this. So this is the main exception that we see practically. And in kashaya rasa, I think it's mostly to do with medicine. All shita virya, so they are all cooling in nature and basically cause obstruction or stagnation. I told you that kashaya rasa are all constipative and tend to cause obstruction, except for haritaki. Haritaki is botanically identified as Terminalia chebula. So it is called kadukai in Tamil. So what it does, it's a laxative. So it is the only exception. Though it is astringent or kashaya rasa, it does not cause stagnation or obstruction to things in the body. So these exceptions you can remember. So in madhura rasa, all the other foods that are predominantly sweet, I think we saw in Dravadravyadi. So ghee, butter, urad dal, all of these are madhura rasa. All the other pulses are sweet, except, so all of them have a tendency to increase kapham, except rice, wheat, barley, these main grains, green gram, sugar, meat soup and honey. Then in amla rasa, all of them increase pittam. So all that we discussed increase pittam, the exception being nellika and pomegranate. So once in a while, so generally have a moderate sour level, and if you can replace your other sour ingredients with gooseberry or nellika once in a while, it is very, very beneficial. And in lavanam, Ayurveda always recommends Saindava lavanam or rock salt. And in tikta katu, so predominantly katu in our spice levels, replacing our chilies with ginger, pepper and garlic reduces vata, whereas using chili spice aggravates or vitiates vata in the body. These are the exceptions. So I think I would like to thank you all for joining. And I think last class there was a doubt as to how to prepare kanji. So that is the rice porridge that we have. So basically, cooked rice can be divided into 4 types. That is the rice water, gruel, thick gruel and cooked rice. So what is rice water? It is commonly called manda, where the ratio of rice mentioned. So different acharyas, various textbooks mention different proportions. So rice is to water ratio. Some people mention 1:14, but ideally you can take 1:4 or 1:5 and cook the rice well. So prior to this, what we clinically always mention is you take parboiled rice, you dry roast it. So like we discussed last class, roasting the rice makes it lagu, and we ask you to slightly powder it to a consistency of rava so that it becomes more easy to cook. So always dry roast your rice and slightly powder it, and then rice is to water ratio can be 1:4 or 1:5. And when the rice is cooked well, when you consume only the liquid portion of that kanji, it is called manda or rice water. So it is the lightest to digest compared to the others, and the benefits are it relieves thirst and weakness. It helps in downward movement of vata. It is best after any cleansing or when the agni is weak. So if people have undergone any panchakarma or any cleansing, immediately the day after cleansing, your doctor will ask you to consume only this rice water, cooked water. It increases digestive power and it is a good digestive. So that is only the rice water from the cooked cooked rice. That is the kanji water. That is cooked kanji, not just rice soaked in water. Then coming to the next, that is called peya. That is gruel. So preparation with more water and less rice. So when you cook the rice and water in the same 1:4, 1:5 ratio and take more of water and less of the rice, it's considered as peya. So it is next easier to next slightly heavy food to digest. So it is also very beneficial. It relieves hunger, thirst, weakness. So in fevers, all the other cases, we ask you to only take rice kanji, and very good in abdominal distension. It is a good digestive and carminative. It is also helping in downward movement of vata and wholesome. So if you do not have appetite, you have some kind of ajirnam, or you're not feeling too good with your stomach, then we always ask you to starve the stomach or go light on food, so you can have something like a peya or a gruel like this. Then thick rice gruel becomes when you take more of the rice quantity and less of the water that you cook it in. Then again, it helps in binding of motion. Again, it is good for stomach and carminative. So all the three are good deepanam pachanam, and it is light to the stomach and it relieves thirst. Best for people after undergoing cleansing or who are weak. So already people who are weak, they do not have any agni balam. So even though you're weak, you should not go on eating food. You should assess your digestive capacity and then consume food. So in such people, consuming thick rice gruel, that is more of rice, less of water, will also give you some energy and also is very good for the agni, because it helps in keeping the agni in good condition. So, and then I think cooked rice we have already discussed, where it is the different preparations of rice. So you can mostly consume thick gruel and gruel. So 1 second. So in any fever or ajirnam kind of condition, consuming this gruel and rice gruel is very beneficial. So again, like I told you, urad dal, etc. are very heavy. So people generally have fever, will say we had idli with rasam, idli with something else. So in general, you should know, though it is steamed, and last time we saw it is guru to digest, and urad dal in general is a heavy to digest pulse. So always stick to rice kanji when you don't feel too great on your stomach. And I think this is the picture of Nel Puri a lot of you had asked. So I've just included it in this picture, in this presentation. So that's about it. So I think before we go to the doubt session, I would like to, there'll be a small introduction about the new course that Vyoma is starting. So we'll just spend some time with that, and then we can go into the doubt session. Yeah. So I think, ma'am, you can.
Yeah. Can you all see the screen now?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Namaste all. Like we are from KISS Persona team in Vyoma, and we would like to say about an upcoming course in Vyoma for kids age 6 to 13 years. So we will be taking only few minutes of your time. Though this course is not for kids, thought it may be very helpful for your kids, or you can even share about this to parents whom you may be knowing, that who is looking for these type of courses. Okay, so this is a vyoma-samskrta-pathasala. Okay, this course. And what is it exactly? This is like a daily online curriculum for children 6 to 13 years to inculcate Sanskrita, Samskriti and Samskara. So this online daily curriculum, so what will be like, it is after school hours. It will be after school hours. So this will be on a daily basis. And this will be a 3-stage program, and every stage will be running for up to 1.5 years. Like the 3 stages like Shravanananda, listen, Vicharananda, think, Asarananda, experience. So these classes are all planned for 1 hour every weekday evening. That's what I said, na? After school hour. So what all these subjects are taught here? There are core subjects as well as electives. Core subjects Sanskrit as well as slokas or taught. That is from Sanskrit, you can say from reading, writing, listening skills, and spoken Sanskrit, and all these will be taught here. And in slokas, so many slokas will be covered in this. So these two, Sanskrit as well as slokas, will be a core subject, and you can have these elective subjects like bhajans, Shugitani. So you all know this Shugitani is nothing but a Sanskrit rhymes and Indian culture concept like why do we do in our culture, what we do in our culture, like that. And stories like from Panchatantra, Itihasa like Ramayanam, Mahabharatam, and Purana, Bhagavata Puranam, and all these will be taught in story. And in activities, you'll be having an games, puzzles, and any activities like related to Bharatiya Samskriti. Okay, so it will be we'll be having the worksheets for that activities. Like that. So what I mean to say is the elective subject, these subjects, the kids can take any one of these or all of these, depending if they want to have, okay, I want to learn bhajans, or I want to learn stories. No, I want to do activities, or I want to learn about Indian culture concept. That is also possible. But the core subject, those subject is a mandatory subject we have to take. So you may ask question, how do I register? You can log on to www.sanskritfromhome.org and you can enroll for vyoma-samskrta-pathasala. So after this PPT presentation, I'll be sharing a link where you can directly go to that course page and you can see all the details. All the details are given there. How about the fee structure? What all the rough timetable? So what is expected from the course? What you can expect? All this. And if you have any questions, and if you want to know more details, we have arranged an open house. So you can join that open house also on Friday, that is on 9th September, 8 to 9 p.m. IST. If that is not possible, okay, you can attend on Saturday, 10th September, 8 to 9 p.m. IST. So you can come to the open house and you can ask your question and you can clear all your doubts. So this online link will be updated in the course page for all the registration who will be registering, and also it will be circulated via email on the day of meeting. So Vyoma has curated this program in order to have a strong foundation in learning our beautiful language, that is Sanskrit. And it also helps to expose children to Indic knowledge system and to inculcate right values that are very, very essential for a child's overall development, and to understand and help children to be proud, very much proud of their root, heritage, as well as their culture, and to make them cultural ambassadors of Bharat and future Samskrita, Sanskriti, Samskara leaders. So, it will be very helpful if your kids are of that age, 6 to 13 years, you can enroll. You can go to that course page. I'll be sharing in the chat session. Kindly go to that. You'll be having detailed things there. And if you are not, if your kids are not that age also, you can kindly spread this word, good word about this course to your known group or known friends. It will be really, really helpful. And so, bahu dhanyavadaha. So now I'll be sharing the link. Give me a few. Yeah. Thank you so much, Bagini. And I'll be sharing the link now in the chat box. Yeah. I would like to know, like, is it possible to share to all? I'm not able to do that. It is given only hosts and panelists and panelists. I would like to know, when do you guys plan to have a Sanskrit program for adults? So many programs are there for adults. You can write an email, you'll be able to get. So you write to email to Sanskrit from home, that email, you'll be getting the details. Yeah. Uh, excuse me, like, I would like to know, I'm able to share only those two hosts and panelists. I would like to share, give the link to all. Is it possible?
Ma'am, I think you can share in the DP.
No option to share for me. Yeah, 1 minute, please.
Now can I try?
Yeah, and 1 minute. Now I can share for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So see this, for more information on this course, you can click on the following link, that direct link. So we can go to that and you will be having all details there. And you can attend the open house. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for giving your valuable time, Bhagini. Thank you so much.
I didn't. Oh, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, you can proceed.
Yeah. So I think we can go to the doubt session. 1 second. So let me just check the doubts. So 1 second. Yeah. So I think yeah. So Vata Korombi. So what happens is the sundaka, like I told you, is very sour in taste. Sorry, tiktam. It is bitter. So to balance it, we use it in a sambar or a gravy that is very sour in taste to balance the bitterness. So occasional use. I'm not saying we should not at all consume such kind of food. Occasional use of such food, and I also told you amla rasam is good for Agni Deepanam. So once in a while it can be done, or you can just simply roast the sundaka, have it with a little rice and ghee. That will also do. Excessive use of tamarind, tomato is what is not recommended. And then sugar, does it include jaggery too? So I think in the Drava Dravyadi class, we have discussed the difference between sugar, that is unrefined sugar, and candy sugar versus jaggery. So sugar is actually cooling, and it does not vitiate so much of kapham compared to what jaggery does. So jaggery definitely vitiates and increases kapham in the body. So thank you. 1 second. So I'll just go to that first slide. Someone has asked, in the first slide, it is shown kashayam increases kapham. So, and also decreases. So basically, Tatradhya Marutam Nanti. That is madhura, amla, lavanam reduce vata. So that's what I told you in the first slide. It is a thing that successively increases. So you just keep in mind what reduces which. So madhura, amla, lavanam reduces vata. Tikta, katu, kashayam. That is the next three. Katu, tikta. So tikta, katu, kashayam reduces kapham. Then kashaya, tikta and madhura reduce pittam. So in general, kashaya rasa has an action on reducing both pittam and kapham. Excessive use of kashaya rasa increases vata. So kashaya rasam in general has a slight tendency to decrease pittam and kapham. So the mild increase that would have shown in the first slide would have been a successive increase. So what does not decrease it is shown that it has a tendency to increase, but it will not increase that much. So that is the meaning of it. Is it healthier to strain the starch from the rice? So I think last class we discussed that more than pressure cook, straining the rice makes it more lagu, free from starch and this thing. So I don't know if there's a loss of mineral, but because it makes the rice lagu and easy to digest, it is recommended. Then anything else in this box? Is thick rice gruel kanji. So that's what. So one second. So that's what the kanji that we have has different proportions. So that's what I explained, the different kinds. So you can make it a thick rice gruel or a more watery rice gruel. So ideally 1:4 or 1:5 can be taken as a proportion, and the rice can be dry roasted, powdered and cooked in an open vessel. So if you take more of water and less of rice, it becomes a more watery rice gruel. And if your appetite is slightly better, you can take a thicker version where you take more of the rice and less of the water. So is there any way we can find out?
Ma'am, one second.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. 1 second. Ma'am, you can talk now. You can ask question.
So is there any way?
With one of the panelists want to ask the question. So,
Bhagini, very interesting course. I have a doubt. Like
Yes,
after this gruel, they say kanji. Is it okay to add a buttermilk, or it is okay to add a milk?
So again, it depends on your appetite to have it. So if you're having a fever, if you're having a dull appetite, or if you do not have good digestive power, we do not recommend anything. Just rice kanji with some water and a little salt and pepper. That's about it. Then again, proper buttermilk, if made like how explained in the course, you can add a little bit of it in the morning. Otherwise, also you can add with kanji, you can add milk and sugar. So usually milk and salt should not be added together. Definitely you can have a thick rice gruel with little milk and sugar in the morning. That is not a problem. But in a unwell condition, when you're having a fever, when your digestive capacity is not so good, you need not add anything to it.
Okay, that's water. Yes.
Just plain water, like how we have asked you to cook in this proportion, and little salt and pepper powder can be added.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, thank you so much, Bhagini.
No
really,
problem.
thank you.
Welcome. So I think that 1 second, is there any asana we can find out? So I don't know if yoga can balance doshas, but I think with the diet and regimen, you can somewhat keep it under control. So anything that is abnormally or excessively used only will cause vitiation. Otherwise, there is no need. What kanji can we give to 6-month-old babies when mother's milk is less? So then again, I think you'll have to treat the mother for increasing her breast milk. And usually you can either start off with rice or ragi kanji. Then I think you can, you can just mail me. I can send you the procedure to make it. You can make the rice gruel, the rice kanji in the same way. So you dry roast and powder the rice, make it with lot of water, and initially start giving them with lot of rice and less of, more of water, less of rice, and slowly start introducing it to them. So weaning is a different topic, but you can make the kanji in the same way. So then 1 second, can I go to so I think cooking oils also we have discussed last class. That is in the Dravadravyadi. Then you mentioned pomegranate as savargana. So that is what I mentioned in the exception to the rule. Only pomegranate and nellika, that is the gooseberry, though they are amlam, they do not vitiate pittam, and they are cooling or sheetam. Generally, all sour foods are ushnam, whereas pomegranate and gooseberry are the only exceptions. And because pomegranate is cooling, it is definitely recommended in diarrhea, and it has a stambanam or a effect to arrest things, which is why we also recommend pomegranate in cases of diarrhea or loose motion. So senda namak, I think you can just go through Himalayan rock salt or pink salt. I think a lot of pictures come up. And then could you please share an example for lunch and breakfast that is nourishing? So all 6 rasas need not be there in all the meals that we eat. Overall, in the meals that we eat, if we have a balance of all 6 and do not overdo anyone is okay. So going forward, I think when we go to Aharam chapter, that time we can discuss practically what we tell people to generally consume. Our curry leaves tikta rasa. So honestly, I do not know. I haven't tasted as such, but I can go through that if anything like that is mentioned in the text about it. Otherwise, you can consider it. Yeah, definitely it doesn't fall under the other spice taste. So it is actually a good tikta rasa itself. You can consider curry leaves to be tikta rasam. Then coffee, tea with milk and black both have different properties. So the predominant taste of coffee and tea is what you have to take into consideration. Both coffee or caffeine, cocoa and tea powder predominantly are tikta rasa, and because they have a slight tendency to vitiate pittam, or because of its katu, because we have seen people who have it on empty stomach, they get a heartburn. So it's predominant of tikta katu rasam. So what we ask generally people who are very, very habituated to do and can't give up on it is to have very mild tea or coffee. So milk is obviously madhuram. The coffee tea predominantly we consider it as tikta rasam. So some people have a tendency to make it extremely strong, and that bitterness should just cover through the whole taste. So that is what we do not recommend, because the tikta rasam overpowers there. Then rinsing water should be kept overnight after boiling. So generally we do not ask you to consume boiled water the next day. So we generally ask you to boil fresh and have. So nothing overnight. Then can you give us the proportion of rice and gruel? I think I've mentioned it. You can use 1:4 or 1:5 is good enough. And no, it's not the last class. I think another 2 or 3 more classes will be there. We still have to discuss about food. What type of rice? Any parboiled rice, any variety of rice, but it should be parboiled. Then so you mentioned that tikta rasa. So turmeric is something we do not consume in excess in general itself. It is used in very mild quantity. So there is no possibility of it to vitiate excess of pittam, but it is vayu. So small quantities of turmeric is actually not, it will not do much harm. It does the same actions of tikta rasam. So it does not fall in the exception, because turmeric is ushnam and it has the same properties of tikta rasam. So then some days so again I think we will go through the tastes of food that have to be eaten in order. So in general, having sweet every day is not very recommended. Definitely if you have a dessert or sweet at the end of every meal, you will clearly see kapham to be increased in your body. Then the salted nartanga is, so again I told you, excessive of salty food not daily. And I think I've told you about curd, and it should never be taken at night. Then again, can tomato onion gravy. So again, balancing of it depends on what your other foods have. Excessive of tomato, tamarind, lemon is also not good. Some days you can balance it by not having. So can curd be added? So I'm not answering curd related question. I think we have discussed in detail about how curd should be used. It should not be heated, etc. You can go through that. Then is it good to take ragi kanji at night? So I think ragi, oats, all of this has been discussed. So I think you can just go through the previous Aharam chapter if you have not attended it. Is it good to wash parboiled rice and dry for a little bit before roasting? Yes, you can do that. Then again, there is no authentic Ayurvedic recipe book. Then again, I told you, you can use these exceptions to the rule. So replace your excessive tamarind, tomato, lemon with a little of nellika once in a while. Alter your spices with pepper, jeera, dhania. They are more of the Indian spices, which do not increase vayu compared to your chilies. And keep it in moderation. I think generally itself we know if there's an excess tendency to eat a particular taste, you may be experiencing certain things of this. So balancing all the tastes in our this thing. So then again, Ayurveda believes in yukti, using of your own intellect, understanding one's own self. Nothing can be very textual. So each and every person is different. So you cannot be saying 100, 200 grams of so and so. It's a very specificated thing. So having a balanced thing. So understanding these concepts and implementing it to some extent in your regular diet itself will get you through with a healthy this thing. So 1 second, did I miss any? So curry leaves are also called small neem. So I think curry leaves you can consider tikta rasa, and then so can I have so sweet? So having a small quantity of sweet in the is okay. Then again, it depends on how active and how this thing you are in your lifestyle. And also, if you're already suffering from any kapha vyadhi like diabetes, thyroid, then I think too much of sweet is not good. What category does tea fall into? It's a very modern introduction that tea is fall. We generally consider it as to be tikta katu, and it has a tendency to aggravate vata in the body. So I think one mild tea doesn't do much harm, because today people cannot stop it. So some people have 4, 5, 6. So that is what is not recommended. Then about milkshakes, we'll discuss in the next class about viruddha aharam, and what foods should not be combined with what will all be covered in the next coming classes. So yeah, I think that's about it. I think I've answered most of the doubts. I think I got a couple of mails last week on Saturday for which I've not yet replied. So by Monday, I shall be replying to them. And anything else, you can also send it through mail. So I think we are done with most of it. So if anyone wants to unmute, you can. Otherwise, we can end the session.
Namaste, Bhagini.
Yeah, tell me, ma'am. Namaste.
Yeah, this course will be running for another 3 weeks, and after that also, are you planning to have this course, Bhagini?
So as of now, not yet. This is the first time we have done this, so we have to see the response. This is just the basic course of it. We haven't planned any advanced session or anything. So as of now, another 2 or 3 more classes, then this basic course will be getting over.
Okay, so if I can join from next week, is that okay?
Yeah, you can join anytime. And I think also Vyoma has the recorded versions uploaded on the Sanskrit from home page. So you can listen to all the other classes as well.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Welcome. So what is Ayurveda's take on kokum? So kokum is also a kind of sour food that vitiates pittam. So that is also a kind of tamarind only, kokum. So that is also pitta vardakam and increases pittam in the body. So kokum is also part of that category only. Yeah. So anyone else, or I think we can end the session. Okay. So yeah, I think there's no one else. We can finish today's session. And next week, we'll be discussing about aharam and other rules of taking food, etc. So yeah. So I think we have...
Ma'am, can you share your mail ID?
Pardon?
Once again, can you show your mail ID?
Yeah, so I think I forgot to include it in this session. One thing you can do is you can just... 1 second. So what you can do is send in your doubts to this mail ID, and they will forward it to me. And or if you go through my previous PPTs, I've included the mail ID of mine also. I didn't include it in this presentation, but you can send your doubts to this, and they will forward it to me. That is this particular class. So, or if you just go through the previous PPT, my mail ID will be there in the last session, last page. So again, can we eat food stored in the refrigerator? So generally it's not recommended. It becomes heavy to digest because it's kept cool the whole day, and reheating food is not recommended. But these days, due to situation and our current this thing, once in a while I think it's recommended, but not regularly. Always freshly cooked food is something that is recommended. So yeah. Anyone else? Okay.
No, that's good.
Yeah. So can we end today's session?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Okay. Thank you all for joining, and let's see next week.